After marriage, look, before marriage, we have to avoid these things. Like I said, the talk I was saying, if we don't avoid it, if you think, oh, I'm not married right now, let me just enjoy life, what will happen? This will happen. The last point. Lust outside of marriage is never ending. That's going to happen. If you become diseased, if we become diseased before marriage, that disease will never end. Even after marriage, same problems. So don't think that before marriage is fine, let me just play around a bit. Because once a person gets into the hang of it, that's it. If he has a habit of masturbation, generally it's very difficult. Even after marriage, he thinks I'm going to avoid masturbation after marriage. I've got 10, 15 cases where wives are complaining that their husbands masturbate and watch porn and gratify themselves at the expense of fulfilling her needs. There's one wife called me, let me tell you about this. She said that in the middle of the night, he's sleeping with his laptop in the same bed. And she said, I snore away, and then I woke up, and I saw him, and he was actually masturbating in the same bed. And I said, why, were you in menstrual periods or something? You know, I thought she must... He said, no, I'm perfectly fine. Actually, even before we went to sleep, I tried to seduce him, and he was saying, no, I'm a bit tired, and this and that. And then in the middle of the night, I wake up, and he's masturbating. And that might sound shocking to us. Yeah, and he did sound shocking to me. Thinking, you know, I was under the impression, this was a while ago, I was under the impression that somebody might do that if they're not getting a woman. Like they don't have a woman, they're not married or something, so they might do this. But there's a perfectly healthy woman. What's happened? It's a disease. It's a disease. Probably this disease started before marriage, and it continued after marriage. Marriage hasn't done anything. It's actually, if the person, he might be having more pleasure in that than even having normal sexual intercourse with his wife. And that's why we see people like the outside, people extramarital affairs, people are married, they have women, and they have wives, sometimes they have perfect wives, they still carry on. There's two reasons, sometimes there's no like kind of compatibility and things like that, but one of the reasons is that it's a disease, and even some of the studies are considering, you know, all these celebrities and all these people who are actually now being caught in affairs on the side, like we were talking about, a lot of these sports stars and players. That's just some of them that come in the news. But there's numerous. There's numerous. So what they are saying now, they're categorizing this as a disease. It's a disease. According to us, it's a spiritual disease. This is what it is. Never ending. It's never ending. You know, they know what's going to happen, but they just can't stop. Imagine, you know, visiting prostitutes. There's a football player recently caught, and he was in the news about prostitutes. Now, why would he not need to go to a prostitute? He could get any woman. It becomes a disease. So, don't think before marriage. And after marriage, it's zina and the things you have to say. If you want to save yourself, and if there's a problem, like we say, look, we all want to become good human beings, and we all want to attain, you know, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why we're doing these kind of programs. We need practical solutions. And you can maybe go to the website, it's written at the bottom on the main page. We need practical solutions. If somebody is not married, okay, then it's easier to treat. And there's lustful issues. As I said, somebody is more lusty, has more lust, born with it, or from an early age, no problem. It's just like somebody has more anger. But treat it before you get married. Before it. Treat it. We have to treat it before we get married. And there are ways of treating it. And then, you need to, like we were discussing, ensure that the marriage is with someone that is compatible in that person's... Because even if you have a lot of sexual desire, treat it, meaning don't use it in a haram way, but if you have a lot of sexual desire and then you get married and use all of that sexual desire in the marriage, there's nothing wrong. More reward. Every time more sexual intercourse, more reward. Sadaqah. So you don't have to decrease it. You don't have to get medication to decrease your sexual passion. But you need to, this is something that we need to discuss in our communities. That the wife, there's problems in marriage where the wife sometimes thinks the husband is too sexualized. And she doesn't want to, you know, after marriage she thinks it's just too much for her. And sometimes vice versa. The man is so cold. And the woman is so hot. And she has more sexual passion and desire. These things need to be discussed and sorted out for marriage. You need to actually have an understanding. There needs to be compatibility. And if somebody's already married, and then there's problems, then it's slightly more difficult, but we have to try to sort it out in some way. We need to tackle it. We need to first identify the problem. A lot of the problem is that this is happening a lot in the Muslim communities. It's widespread. Because I work with Lustful, it's a Q&A, and I talk to people anonymously, phone calls and emails, so people don't have to tell me who they are and who they, And that's the reason I wrote this book. Actually, in the introduction, I said,
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah. Ashhadu an la
So I was saying about that I work and I speak regularly with people, and people contact me, and these issues come about, and it's widespread. It's not amongst those people who are completely non-practicing, visiting the nightclubs and those kind of people. So within the hijabi, bearded, mosque frequenting, fasting, salah praying kind of communities, major issues in marriages. The rate of divorce is high. And there's a great rate and percentage of people, there's a great percentage of married couples who are just there for the sake of it because they feel it's a taboo in the community. They just don't want to shame themselves or the parents, or because of the children they're living. And because they're not satisfied sexually, they're looking elsewhere. And it's even resulting, in my city in Leicester, many cases have come where Muslim wives have ended up having affairs. Muslim wives. Hijab wearing Muslim wives, and this happens. It's a big problem, and these things we can't brush them aside. We have a lot of other programs and discussions, and mosques are full, and salat and tarawih and qiyamul layl and moon sighting and moon fighting or whatever's happening and it's happening. Okay, but these are issues that need to be tackled. We need to bring them out in the open. We need to identify them. We need to start discussing them in the masjid. You need to have a Jumu'ah khutbah about why masturbation is haram and how to avoid masturbation and porn and pornographic material. Things that lead to zina, casting lustful gazes, casual intermingling, khalwa. Khalwa, man and woman, I don't want to go into the details. Not dressing modestly. Relationships before marriage, don't. It's haram. Those relationships before marriage, they have more impact on the sisters, and so many sisters end up harmed and they suffer after marriage as well. There are a lot of reasons why. Sometimes they find something in a relationship previously, and then when they get married to someone else, then they don't. Like this case came to me. There was an email that this happened. Somebody actually said that this happened a lot in East London. It's not email. Somebody wrote me a letter. This came in Ramadan. I haven't even responded to it yet. It's a long letter. And in East London, there's so many people, these practicing people, young people, they do secret marriages, and some are having affairs, and some brothers are just going, practicing brothers with a beard, and is going from one sister to another sister to another sister. One sister married for like 4 months, and then she was divorced by the brother, and then now she's properly married with the parents knowing, and now she's remembering the first husband because the way he used to be intimate, this new person is not intimate. And it's just problems. And it's just destroyed her full life until her death she dies. Unless inshallah, some miracle will happen, and inshallah. But we need resolve, like preserving the eyesight. There's two things we need to remember. Himma and ruju' ila Allah. Himma means resolve and willpower. Nothing comes without willpower. You just put your foot down, whatever happens, the world can turn upside down, I'm not going to cast a lustful gaze on a woman. And number two, dua, constantly, after every prayer of salah. Dua, supplication is definitely needed. And then look, it's masturbation, fantasizing. We talked about it slightly, but it's sinful, it's haram, it's dirty, and it's dangerous. Masturbation is definitely, it has a lot of effects. It has a lot of effects, harmful effects. I had it somewhere written about masturbation. Where was it? The harmful. This was somewhere in one of the websites that I just yesterday I saw, and it affects a person's it leads to premature ejaculation, inability to control oneself, and these are non-Muslim sources, right? Experts, and inability to control oneself, and harmful when in marriage and can last throughout foreplay. Reduced amount of orgasm, inability to last enough to satisfy a wife. That marriages end because the man has an illness of premature ejaculation. He's not able to satisfy his wife because of masturbation. All medically proven. Mental health also affected, like decrease in memory, ability to retain names, places. You develop a feeling of uncertainty on actions, so always concerned whether you've done something or not, like locked door, etc. Psychological problems. Don't feel like a man due to a deficient sexual organ. Sex problems in marriage and frustration due to not being able to help the wife reach orgasm through penetration. Islamic harm, we know the Islamic harm. And you can't have the spirituality and worship and all of that. All stemming from the inability to satisfy a wife, which is paramount for a man in Islam to fulfill his duty towards her. You have to, and then the wife loses respect. And that's what happens to that man who, in the middle of the night, he was watching. Because masturbation, fantasizing, and the next point, porn, it's all related, sexually explicit material. It's addictive, extremely harmful. Causes psychological impotency. What does psychological impotency mean? That the person is not impotent, he doesn't have a medical problem, yeah, but he cannot have sexual intercourse with his wife. He can get satisfied with porn or with any other woman, but with his wife he can't. He becomes psychologically impotent. And because then he's seen all the different things, and he wants different things, he gets bored. With a wife, 1 year, 2 years, and then he will not able to have sexual relations with his own wife. That's it, because he can't have sexual relations with a wife. He cannot just be aroused, because he's been accustomed to different things that he's been seeing on porn. And porn is a big issue. It's a major issue. It's a big problem. There's a book on porn. I don't mind mentioning it too. Maybe you can read it. A non-Muslim author. She's a lady, Pamela Paul. She's written a book called Pornified. Worth reading. It gives you all the statistics and all the figures and how many Arabs and how many Pakistanis, how many Muslims and how many Hindus and how many watch porn based on the research that's done and all the harms and everything. It's quite a good book, Pornified. I actually attended a lecture of the author. I was in Canada once. They had a conference there, Reviving the Islamic Spirit conference, major conference. They have this every year, 15,000-16,000 people. So I went for a lecture as well in 3 days. One of the sessions they had was on Islam and porn, and they had one sheikh who gave I think it was Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, he gave the Islamic side, and they had this author who came down and gave a lecture, which was very highly beneficial. So porn you have to avoid. Homosexuality as well. It's a preference for sexual and emotional relationship, both sexual and emotional, with a member of the same gender. It's not a choice. That's why we use the word preference. It's not a sexual orientation. Orientation gives the meaning that you're born with it. It's not a choice. It is a choice. And all the arguments and evidences that are presented that you're born with it, all flawed. They're medically disproved. They're scientifically disproved. There's no basis for them. Otherwise it's almost as have a desire. Okay, they're disproved. I don't have time to go into them. But even if they're not disproved, even if we believe, suppose for the sake of it, the person is born with it, That's it. It's just like if someone's born with too much anger. Control it.